Hello everybody, this is PD from BurgZerg Arcade at BurgZergArcade.com, and this is tutorial 264 in our little hack and slash demo. So let's go ahead, we'll open up Unity, and we're going to go ahead and open up MonoDevelop. And if we take a look where we left off, we basically just put out the basic structure that we wanted for the way our melee combat was going to work. And let me just quickly go over it. Okay, so let's just start from the top. We want to deal with the animation. I don't think we actually have an animation set up yet for it. Let me go ahead. We'll take a look at the mob. I believe that was advanced movement script. But let's just take a look. We'll take the Dungeon Guardian. There's our list of animations. Mob. It wouldn't be on the mob. There's advanced movement. Yes, advanced movement's the one that we actually set up where we say what animations to use. And this would also probably be a good time, because I believe we're using these as strings. Let me just open this up. I believe we're actually, whoops, clicked on the wrong link. I believe we're actually using strings. Yes, and we could probably switch these over to animation clips. So that's something we're going to want to look at when we go over here to actually add the animation for attack. But for now, I'm just going to leave that. I just want to get the actual functionality working. So I'm going to come back to the AI. And let me just also take a look here. If we decide if we hit or not. Now, the way I want this to work is it's going to be based on my melee attack versus, my melee offense versus his melee defense. And I'm going to figure out what the difference is and build some sort of sliding scale off of the difference. But for now, since I'm just testing, I want to make sure it hits every time. So I'm just going to say if true. And then all of this goes in there. And I'm just going to tab all this in. Get rid of that line. And we are going to need an else statement here. So else, not welts. And I'm also going to need this here. Bring this over one. There we go. And this line actually goes after the block, because regardless of whether or not we hit, they did do an attack, so we want to reset the attack timer. Now let's go ahead. We'll clean a little bit of this up. I'm just going to throw a quick debug statement out. Now the one that's going to fire is if the true, because we have it set to, this is the only debug statement that's actually going to fire right now because we have it set to only be true. And I'm just going to say we hit. And I'll just copy this, and I won't put this down here even though we're not using it just yet, just so I know it's there. Okay. This isn't tabbed in right. Huh. Too much coffee. I cut that one right out. Whoops. Okay, so let's go see if we have any errors. Everything's okay. All right, we're back after a small MonoDevelop crash. Haven't had that happen in quite a while, probably about a year. But anyway, we have no errors, so we're going to go ahead and head back into MonoDevelop. And we were down here. I want to start working on these reset timers now. And the one I want to work with is the the melee reset timer, which actually is in charge of, resetting, keeping track of how long it is before we can attack again. Now, in order to access this, since we actually have it defined in our base class, and of course our mob script does inherit that, we need a way to reference this mob class that's attached to our actual mob. So what I'm going to do is come up to the top here, and I'm just going to throw it in under here. And yeah, I'll just make it private. And it's a type mob, because that's the type of the class, and I'm just going to call it me. And I'll leave it there. And I'm going to go ahead in my awake function. I'm not sure if I'm actually doing anything in awake in the base character class. I am. So we're going to have to do the exact same thing that we did in our PC class. We'll come over here and take a look. We want to reference the awake function. Or at least what's been done in the awake function already. And I'm sorry, I'm completely on the wrong script here. The AI script doesn't actually inherit from anything that we've written. It just inherits from mono behavior. I was thinking we're modifying the mob script, but we're not. But anyway, what we're going to want to do is take me and make it equal to game object with a small g, because that references the game object that we're attached to, dot get component. And then we're going to use generics to get the component that we want. And the one we want is our mob class. And we'll just leave it there. And then just to test this out, we're going to use a debug dot log. Let's do an error because it'll come up red. And we should be able to actually take anything in me and be able to output it. So I'm going to go ahead and take, what was it, melee reset timer is what we're going to be working with. And I'm going to output that in red, and it should be 0 when I start it up. So let's go ahead, we'll try this here, make sure there's no errors. We have some reachable code, which I believe is just, yeah, because we have this set to true, so that means it can never reach else. That's fine. We're going to leave that in there just because it actually does remind us that we actually do have to come back and fix that. And these are from the train toolkit, which is fine. So let's start this up. And did I do a log warning? Anyway, it's coming up 0 here. Let me go back up to the top. Log warning. I meant to do a log error, but you get the idea of how it works. All right, so we already know that me is always going to be attached. You could put some debug statements, or not debug statements, some error correction in here to check to make sure that it is attached, and if not, manually attached. But we actually have that set up ahead of time in an earlier tutorial. And let me go down, and well, we're going to come down here, and now I'm going to want to set that variable. So it was me dot melee. Just cannot type today. Melee reset timer. Now we're going to start this off to being equal to this one here, the melee attack timer. And it's going to be different for every mob. So me dot melee attack timer. Now the way we have it set up is this is going to be called every single time melee attack is called. So it's going to constantly be getting reset. And we don't want that. So we're going to come up here. And I believe it's in the search where we actually call. Or is it decide? Yes, it's in decide. I'm actually just going to come down here. Well, we should really do it up here. Basically, if the melee attack timer is not up, you should not even try to melee attack. You should look at doing one of the other attacks. So let's go ahead and actually clean some of this up. We don't need the debug statement anymore. Let's just make this a little easier to read and see what's going on. So you can do melee ranged. Okay. And I want to put a comment here. Whoops, not the way I wanted to do it. Tabbing automatically opens it up, which is fine. I'll just do it up here. He cannot use melee attacks. Alright, so if we go up here and take a look, looks like when they can use all of them, it's calling here, else it calls here. So basically we could just tag on the checking of how much time's left before we can do a melee attack. And if it's greater than 0, we know we can't melee attack. So that's what I'm going to do here. Now, this is a little bit of a messy method because we really should be setting flags up for all 3 different types of attacks. But since we're only working with the melee attack right now, I just want to put it up here and keep it basically as simple as possible to understand while we're working with just the melee. So that's under me dot melee reset timer. And of course I forgot the and sign. We want to make sure it's greater than 0. So if it's greater than 0, we cannot melee attack. Now we're actually going to have to add something down here. And what I'm going to do, well, wait a minute here. If it's greater than 0, we can't do a melee attack. So we'll come down here and we'll just check to see if me dot melee timer reset melee, or melee reset timer is greater than 0. We just want to reduce it. So we're going to say me.melee reset timer minus equals, and we're just going to use time.delta time, which really isn't the best way to actually do this because I'll have to take a look just to make sure, but I believe the time.delta time is called, or the difference between each frame. And this function here is not going to be called each frame. It might be called every second or third frame. So while it does work as a timer, it's not very accurate. So this is something we're going to want to clean up a little bit later. But like I said, right now let's just keep it as simple as possible. And this should do it. So if it's greater than 0, subtract, and want to make sure it's a float. So we'll come back. Yes, it is a float. And that should do it. Let me see. Let me come down here and yeah, that'll reset it. Now we changed the logic just a little bit. So instead of counting up, we're actually counting down now. So we got to change this. And one more thing I want to add before we test is debug log statement, just to see what this actual timer is. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And I'm just going to come up here. And the first thing I'm going to do is just throw out a debug log statement. Actually, just do a warning just so it's a bit different of a color. And of course, I want to know what this number is. So I'm just going to append on a string here. Reset. Timer is... All right, so we'll head into Unity, make sure there's no errors. We just have the unreachable code, which we know why that's there, and the train toolkit. So great, let's start it off and take a look to see if our logic is working. And I really should move these mobs maybe a little bit closer. Here we go. Reset timer is always 0. It's always 0. So let's go ahead and take a look. If we look, we're never actually calling melee. So we'll go ahead and clear this, and let's head back into MonoDevelop. And let's take a look at our if statement here. So we're seeing if the distance is less than our melee range. We actually have this wrong. So if it's less than or equal to 0, then we can attack melee range. So we'll go ahead, we'll go back into Unity, clear out the warnings, and let's just go ahead and start it up. Now we should be able to melee. So we'll go ahead, run through our little portal that we made, run around the portal to get back, and go up to one of the mobs. And it looks like he's wielding a pick this time. And we'll just wait for him. So as we can see, the reset timer, it does get reset to 2 when it hits 0. So everything's working. We now have a reset timer. So we'll just go ahead and clear this again. And since we are still working just with melee combat, I actually want to come in and clear up some of the clutter that we're getting from our debug statements out here. So one of the things I want to do is come down to the magic and melee. And we're just going to comment these out. And actually, while we're in here, let's come up and well, we do need to keep this. Well, let's just try this out. See what else needs to be cleaned up, or at least make it a little bit more readable while it's cycling. Okay, so we'll run up to the mob. We don't really care about this debug statement. We only care if we watch while it counts down. Let's actually move this up since we care more about this than we do the actual other things going on. If we actually just pause it, let's just scroll up. It's probably faster. Well, here, actually, let's get rid of this debug statement right here. We're actually going to move this. Well, I'm going to comment it out because I do like it there, but for now, I'm going to put a copy of it up here. Actually, we don't even need it. We're just going to comment it out. Let's go ahead, we'll clear this off, and let's stop it and go start it again. And again, we'll just run up to the mob, get it cycling, and this should give us a better view of what's going on. What I want to make sure is that it's calling melee attack, and I'm pretty sure it is. So let's go ahead, we'll pause it, scroll to the top, and we'll notice the reset timer is 0. When he finally gets into melee range, it gets set. It's automatically setting to hit because we have it set to being true. That's where our code cannot be reached part is coming from. And then we notice that the next time through it checks and it sees that the reset timer is set to 2, or which is our default timer between melee attacks, and it just keeps counting down. It cannot do another melee attack until it reaches 0 or less. And well, if we would have kept it going, you would have eventually got there. But anyway, yeah, it takes about 2 seconds. Like I said, it's not a perfect timer because that call isn't made every frame. And as you can see, it's pretty close. Now we're looking at, what, 1/100th of a second? But still, we do want to clean it up a little bit later on. But anyway, like always, if you enjoyed the tutorial, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.